One Piece episode 650. Now, pacing-wise and animation-wise, this was an awful, awful episode. But, and this is a big but, this is my favorite episode thus far in the arc. Now, you're thinking, wait, that doesn't make much sense. How is that possible? You know, if you're telling me that the animation wasn't that good and the pacing was slow as dirt, how does that make a good episode? Simply put, this episode had a ton of nostalgia, and it just brought me back to the One Piece that I love. Now, I'm going to break this episode into 3 parts, much like I've been breaking the last couple episodes into. Bartholomew, Blackbeard, and Rebecca. Now, I'm going to quickly, just before I get to those 3 points, Cavendish was in this episode, and also Jinjo. Cavendish's role really was Luffy just came out of Block C. Cavendish is coming after him, like he was already intending on doing anyway. And terrible animation. Luffy's jumping back and forth. You know, Cavendish is trying to attack him. The only thing that was really cool about the actual mini fight between Cavendish and Luffy is Cavendish went at Luffy with his sword, and Luffy caught it in between the palms of his hands. And Cavendish couldn't pull his sword away, couldn't move it. That's some epic shit right there by Luffy right there. Able to catch a sword and just completely lock it down. And Cavendish couldn't do anything with it. So, that was Cavendish. And then Jinjo comes out of nowhere. And he looks like he's about to go after Luffy. But then he stops right there and he thanks Luffy. You know, after that big fight, he thanks Luffy. He's like, "Thank you. I got my my drill back, and I just want you to know that we have your back down the road." And this might play a vital role towards the end of the series. We don't know, but it's clear that Jinjo is a very powerful character in One Piece. You know, not anywhere near the high level up people, but he showed himself in this tournament to be actually a pretty formidable foe. So we'll see if he plays any role down the road. So that's it. That was the fodder stuff of the chapter. Kind of pointless. But other than that, Bartholomew. We learned in this episode what Bartholomew is all about. And we learned that he is the biggest fanboy of Luffy's. That's right. We've seen him in the tournament. He was this badass character in Block B who was just tearing everyone apart. You know, just standing there, and he just so easily won the Block B. And in this episode, you know, he's like, these 2 guys were criticizing Luffy and saying, "Oh look, that's Monkey D. Luffy. He couldn't even protect Ace in the Battle of Marineford. He's pathetic." And Bartholomew got so pissed off, and he pins, using his barrier abilities, he pinned these fodder soldiers against the wall. And he was like, "How dare you talk about Luffy Senpai that way? You have no idea what he's been through." And then he had a knife to his tongue, like he was holding out his tongue, like he was gonna cut his tongue off. And here's the part that pissed me off a little bit in the episode. In the actual manga, Bartholomew cuts the soldier's tongue off, but the anime of One Piece, as of late, has really dumbed it down. And I don't know, they don't like gore anymore. They try to avoid all that, but he didn't even cut his tongue off. They pulled something out of X-Men, some X-Men shit from the old cartoon, and they just cut away from that scene, and they just showed Bartholomew slam the guy against the ground. So I'm not too happy about that. I mean, yeah, it's kind of disgusting to see someone's tongue cut off, but why try to censor One Piece so much? You know, sometimes having dark moments or not bloody, but dark elements in anime is not so bad, and I feel like, you know, Oda's really dumbed it down quite a bit since the time skip. Even a little bit at Marineford it was dumbed down. So that was Bartholomew. The thing that I enjoyed the most, though, was Bartholomew's backstory. Well, sort of, not really his backstory, more of them showing how he became a fan of Luffy's. And this is my favorite part of the episode, because they went back to Logtown and they showed one of the best moments in One Piece that I enjoyed, and that was Luffy basically on the high up in the tower. I think it was like I forgot. There's a technical name for that catapult. I don't know. He was up there, ready to get his head chopped off by the soldiers. And Luffy's like, I'm gonna be king of the pirates! And then they flashed and showed that Bartholomew was in that crowd. And they had all the epic music and moments. And basically just showing Bartholomew's... you know, he's looking through newspapers and showing how he became such a fanboy of Luffy's. And they show that Luffy really inspired Bartholomew to start his journey, which is very unique in anime, because usually it's like, you know, Bartholomew's the same age as Luffy, so usually he would have been inspired by, you know, like, Gold Roger, or someone else for his journey, but nope, he was inspired by Luffy, so that was really cool. We know now what Bartholomew's all about, real progression for Bartholomew in character development. So that was Bartholomew in this chapter, and then we go on to something else that was pretty cool, and that was Luffy ran into Burgess in the hallways, and we learned a little bit. Burgess was talking to Blackbeard over the Dendenmushi transponder snail, and there was a little hint there. We heard Blackbeard talk, and he mentioned Akiji going by a plan. So this tells us what? This tells us that Akiji, who is one of the most epic characters so far in the show, that we've seen various times in the past, Marineford, just all over the place, there's hints here that he is, for some reason, working with Blackbeard for something. So this could play a very important role later in the series. We don't know to what extent yet. But Blackbeard is clearly, there's something going on with him on Akiji, and after this arc is over, we will hopefully find out what that's all about. Even in the manga right now, we don't know what that's about. It's possible we might see Blackbeard at the end of this arc. So there's a lot of potential that the end of this arc can be something, you know, really epic. So we just got to follow that and see where that goes. But, you know, it was, that part, it was just Blackbeard talking to, oh my god, brain fart. Blackbeard talking to Burgess, just kind of communicating. Burgess saying he's going to win the Marinara no Mi, and Luffy was kind of pissed off, but it kind of ended there. No real progression, just more of, you know, a little maybe foreshadowing of what's to come. And finally in the chapter, we had Rebecca, who, she basically brought Luffy. She was dragging Luffy through the corridors. She bought him food. She was so nice to him. And then all of a sudden, she brought him near, it looked like a prison area. And then you had all these soldiers just grab Luffy through the prison. And they're like, go, Rebecca, attack him now. And Rebecca looked like she was going to attack Luffy. So clearly, we know Rebecca's not a bad person, but there's something going on. Her whole backstory must be messed up. You know, it showed flashes of her as a little girl and her mother and other things going on. Didn't get too much into that, but there's something very dark going on. This episode showed that there's something dark going on in Dressrosa, and we're going to learn a lot more about that. But a lot of a lot of fan service at the end of the episode. The animation was awful in this episode, really bad in my opinion. But then at the end, when Luffy had Rebecca pinned to the ground, it's like the animation quality just went up like 5 notches. So I don't know what it is with these Japanese. Like, they upped the animation purposely for when Luffy had Rebecca pinned on the ground. Man, I'm very curious to any females who watch what their thoughts are on that, but that seemed kind of like crude, to be honest with you. But it is what it is. Overall, it was, animation-wise and pacing-wise, it was let's be honest, it was a terrible episode, animation and pacing-wise. But this was my favorite episode of the arc, mostly because they showed a little bit of the past and a little bit of the future. Meaning, with the past, they showed Locktown and just a little reminder of what got me into One Piece, and showing Bartholomew and how he started being fanboying over Luffy, which is kind of like, Bartholomew is like the viewers almost. Like, a lot of us viewers fanboy over Luffy. You know, we've grown to love the character, and it kind of shows it's the same with Bartholomew. So that's what I really liked about this episode. And then the Blackbeard stuff, where they showed, they mentioned Okiji and an alliance, tells us that there's epic stuff to come. So, to break it down, epic moments of the past combined with possible epic moments of the future is what made this episode an 8 out of 10 for me. Good episode. It would have been a freaking 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 if it wasn't such slow pacing, but I felt like this episode was necessary just to remind us that, One Piece is not done. There's a lot of stuff to come, and hang in there. The show will pick up, and that's what it reminded me of. I really enjoyed this episode. The comedy was gold. It was, it wasn't like the crappy fodder comedy that we've had in the last couple episodes. It was actually legitimate comedy. So overall, 8 out of 10 episode, a good episode of One Piece. I enjoyed it. Hopefully, they use this as a building block for the next couple episodes to come. So thank you for watching. I'll see you for the next manga chapter review next week. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Did you feel like the pacing was way too slow for it to enjoy it? Or did you enjoy all the epic past and future parts of it? Let me know what you think. Comment below. Like the video. Subscribe. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.